today is the feast of St. Mark. It is also an important day in Italy. Today marks the 77th anniversary of the liberation of the country and the end of World War II. During that long and dramatic period, the Vatican played an important role in trying to save lives. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Thonhauser has more.
Today is Liberation Day in Italy, celebrating its liberation from Nazi fascism, which took place in 1945. The date represents the beginning of the withdrawal of German Nazi soldiers and fascist soldiers from the cities of Turin and Milan after the rebellion of the population, and a coordinated plan by the Partigiani, the Italian resistance, to regain control of the territory. The war did not end in Italy on April 25, 1945, but it continued for some days more until the beginning of May. Meantime, at the Vatican, the Holy See had direct contact with the fascist regime, in particular with the signing of the Lateran Pacts in 1929. The agreement between the Holy See and Italy proved advantageous for both sides. For the Vatican, it meant the independence and sovereignty of the Holy See, besides the recognition of other important privileges for the Church. Relations began to deteriorate, though, when Mussolini, leader of the Italian fascist regime and head of the government, decided to tie his destiny to that of Hitler. In April of 1939, Pope Pius XII announced a plan to save the peace in the hope of a negotiation among the great European powers, then just a step away from conflict. The Holy See thus activated its apostolic nuncios in the relevant European capitals to propose a sort of last gasp conference. However, the Pope's initiative was not successful because the role of the Holy See on the international scene was considered insignificant. During the drama of the war, the Vatican worked concretely on behalf of the Jews amidst their deportation. In fact, there was an enormous network to hide Jews in monasteries, convents, and churches, even at times within the Vatican walls. According to the most recent theories, based on the publication of documents from the Vatican archive, these weren't just spontaneous initiatives, as has always been maintained. In July of 1943, Rome was bombed by the United States. At the end of the attack, Pope Pius XII went to visit the zones that were struck, blessing the victims. Images remain of that phase of the war of the Pope in the midst of the crowd, distributing monetary assistance and accompanied by the substitute for general affairs of the Secretary of State, or sostituto, the future Pope Paul VI, just as for the visit to the Basilica of St. John Lateran on August 13, 1943, on the occasion of the second bombing of the city. The next day, Rome was declared by the Italian government to be an open city, which meant that Allied troops could access the city without resistance in an attempt to save the city's residents and monuments from bombings. It was precisely the Holy See that delivered this government communication to London and Washington. While Italy effectively demilitarized the city, Germany ignored any commitment to it. The Allied governments then reserved the full liberty of action with regard to Rome, which was in fact bombed another 51 times before its liberation on June 4, 1944, 11 months before the beginning of the complete liberation of all of the territory, and another date celebrated still today in Italy as a national holiday. In Rome, Andreas Thonhauser, EWTN News Nightly.